Hi students, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about a small part of a very large idea. That large idea is how to solve quadratic equations. And one of the neat things about quadratic equations is there are a huge number of ways that you can solve them. Today we're going to focus on how to solve quadratic equations using tables. Sometimes in a problem, you're simply given a table and you're told to find the solutions to the quadratic equation. And the key is looking for a zero in that second column, or looking for the zero in the y column, because immediately that tells you that you've got a number or a point on the x-axis. And solutions to quadratic equations are where the where the parabola hits the x-axis. So you're always looking for zeros in the y column. Here we see -3, 0 and -2, 0. So that tells you right away that those are the two solutions that you're looking for. And you can write it as points, -3, 0 and -2, 0, or you can write it as x equals -3 and x equals -2. Of course, it's not always that easy. Most of the time you'll be given an equation and asked to solve. And when you want to solve, using a table is always a very good method to try. Here we have the equation x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our graphing calculator. We're going to go to the y equals screen and we're going to type in the equation exactly like we see it, plus x minus 12. You're not going to type in the equals 0 part, just what you see here on the left. After we've done that, I want to look at a picture of this parabola, and you can see that it crosses the x-axis twice. So when I go to my table, I want to look for two solutions, and I see one already. I see one right here at 3, 0, and I know there was one on the negative side too, but I don't see it yet. So I'm going to use my arrow key. Oh, there it is. And I'm going to arrow up. So I have -4, 0 and 3, 0 as my two solutions. And it's really that easy. In algebra, as you well know, a little proof never hurts. So we're going to use the equation from the previous slide. We found x equals -4 and x equals 3 as solutions, and I'm going to substitute -4 in every place I see this x. And you'll notice that I use parentheses, and that is a very good habit to start. Anytime you substitute a number into an equation, I would ask that you put parentheses around that number. I've got -4 in parentheses squared plus -4 in parentheses minus 12 equals 0. -4 squared is 16. This plus and a minus are in a multiplication situation, so it is the multiplication rules. A negative times a positive gives us a negative, and then of course we keep the subtract 12. So 16 minus 4 is 12, and 12 minus 12 is 0. And so when we plug that -4 in, our equation is true. Same thing with the 3 down here. I've got 3 in parentheses squared plus 3 in parentheses minus 12, and it gives me 9 plus 3, which is 12, and 12 minus 12 is 0. So both of those numbers are in fact solutions. We're never that easy. There's often an extra step. In order to solve these using a table, these equations have to be set to 0. The quadratic equation must be set to 0. So here you see that x squared minus 5x is set to 6. I need to change that using algebra. I know that I can make a 0 over here with what I call a 0 pair. 6 and -6, of course, give us 0. So I'm going to subtract 6 from the right side of my equation and subtract 6 from the left side of my equation. These two do exactly what I want them to do. They make a 0 pair. And over here, I don't have another number. Everything has a variable, x squared, and here has an x. So I can't combine -6 with anything. The only thing I can do is insert it into the left-hand side of my equation. So I've got x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Well, now I'm in a position to solve. So I'm going to go back to my y equals screen, and I'm going to put it in exactly like I see it. And again, I'm going to look at the graph and I see I've got two equations. So let's go to the table and let's figure out what those are. Ooh, I see one right there. See the 0 in the y column? So it's -1, 0 is one equation. I know I had a solution on the positive side, so let's keep looking on the positive side. There it is, 6, 0. So I can say that my solutions are at x equals -1 and x equals 6. Unfortunately, using a table doesn't always work. I've got a beautiful quadratic equation here. It's set equal to 0. I'm going to use my same strategy I've been using. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to put it into my calculator. Make sure I got it right. 4x squared minus 3x minus 3. I'm going to look at a graph. And already on my graph, I'm not really liking what I see. I see a solution between 0 and -1, and I see a solution between 1 and 2. So that tells me my solutions aren't whole numbers, and it's probably not going to show up on my table. My first one was between 0 and -1. You'll notice there's no zeros over here. My next one was between +1 and 2. So these solutions are decimals that we can't find using a table, and so we're going to have to try another method. In this case, you just have to admit that using the table doesn't work. We're not going to guess at what it might be, and we need to try another method. Lucky for us, there are more videos to come, and we're going to talk about those other methods. Another method is using a graph, factoring, completing the square, or using the quadratic formula. Thanks for your time today.